And so joining us now, Dmitry Balkunets, political scientist, here in studio with us, and joining us via video link, we have Adam Borowski, international relations analyst. Good evening.
Good evening.
So, gentlemen, officially, Vladimir Putin is visiting Belarus to talk about economy and the progress of integration process. But I guess there's more to the visit that meets the eye. What's your take on that, Adam Borowski?
Well, there are several layers to this, as always. Obviously, Vladimir Putin is pandering to his base in Russia, showing strength or apparent strength. He wants to intimidate the West. Of course, it's a vague threat, usual nuclear threat. He calls Lukashenko his colleague, but we all know that's, newspeak for puppet. Obviously, Belarus, unfortunately, can be considered a Russian puppet state. So there are several layers to this. And of course, there are some other issues connected with migration, illegal migration. So there is a lot to unpack. And obviously, these kinds of meetings, they have the official angle and the unofficial one. And obviously, these two intertwine. How are they going to intertwine? We're going to have to see. But obviously, they are going to be playing up this nuclear threat angle more and more, given that the West is, especially France, is becoming more decisive in responding to their threats. So they are obviously countering that. But whether this is realistic right now, obviously, this is just scaremongering. But, we don't really know what's happening in this Vladimir Putin's head. But for now, I would say that's mostly scaremongering, with the exception that the migration operation, unfortunately, is a real threat. Hybrid warfare as well, as we know. There were mysterious fires in Poland, who knows what's going on there, and so on. And of course, cyber attack threats. So there are many, many layers to consider here.
Right.
Right. Now, Dmitry, probably this will play well for both the domestic audience in Russia and also in Belarus. So, in your opinion, what do you think is the most important points for these two leaders to get across to their audience?
Firstly, I would like to say that every time after inauguration, Putin visits Belarus. Every time, and this is the second time. Firstly was China, but last cases, every first visit was to Belarus. That is so official visit. That is why for Putin is very important to show for the some leaders on the world that Belarus is only Russia's sphere of interest. That is probably now very important for Putin to show for Western countries, for US, for Euro-Union, that Belarus is only Russian interest. That is why will Putin take so a lot of attention for economy, cooperation. It's very important now also for Russian economy due to sanctions. Russia have now problems with some products, and they now include and involved Belarusian enterprises for cooperation, especially in some specific spheres like for army, etc. That is why on the meeting was some minister of foreign affairs and also some minister who now working in army sphere forces. And probably I think they also discussed about situation in Ukraine. Today was some information about that probably Yanukovych also on Belarus, but I do not know is fake or not, because in March 2022, Putin have planned that Yanukovych must be changed Zelensky, but it was not happened. Probably now they have some ideas how to remove Zelensky, because Lukashenko today said that Zelensky is now his party now expired. And probably they discuss something about these cases. I believe that in future they will continue to organize some operations against Ukraine, and also on the border between Belarus and the Euro-Union. Belarus is a very important country for stability and security in Europe. Probably they also will be organized testing nuclear power from Belarus.
Right. Adam, because as Dmitry said, it's a tradition that Vladimir Putin, after he's inaugurated, travels to Belarus, and you called Belarusian strongman a puppet of the Kremlin regime. Well, usually you don't travel to the puppet. You make the puppet travel to you, the other way around. But I guess you would also call Mr. Yanukovych a puppet of the Kremlin. And what is the former president of Ukraine looking for in Belarus? Do you agree with Dmitry? They are there to talk about the potential replacing of Volodymyr Zelensky?
I believe that's always on the table. They obviously are very eager to replace Zelensky with someone who is more sympathetic to the Russian cause. I don't think they want to make it too obvious that someone is a puppet, whether it's Yanukovych or Lukashenko or anyone else for that matter. They want to maintain this veneer of legitimacy. But obviously, we all know that these are just essentially puppets. Unfortunately, that's the best way to put it. So it's always on the table. They're always looking for that option. There are even some voices that Vladimir Putin might try to attack Kiev again. We're going to have to see that. But obviously, with the absurd policy of the West, that Ukraine cannot strike Russian territory. Unfortunately, Russians are taking advantage of that. And how it's going to, develop, how it's going to unfold, we're going to have to see. So obviously, the regime change in Ukraine, if you can call it that, that's always on the table for them. Fortunately, for now, they're not haven't been successful. But in the future, depending on how the situation unfolds on the ground, unfortunately, things can happen. So they definitely have replacements ready, and I'm sure it's not just Yanukovych. There probably are others that we're not aware of that are going to be ready to step onto the scene when hopefully not when, the right time comes.
Hopefully not.
Hopefully not. Well, Dmitry, that's a good point that, no attacks have originated from Belarusian soil to Ukraine for quite a while, although people last year were anticipating that such an occurrence could happen. Is it possible that once again Russian attacks could originate from Belarusian soil north towards Kyiv?
Yes and no, because my view now, Zelensky and Lukashenko have some probably contact, non-official contact, because you're also analyzing information that Ukraine attacked Russian territory, but no Belarus territory. Probably it's also some non-official contact between Lukashenko and Zelensky, that they now try not any using power from Belarus against Ukraine. And it's also important probably for Russia, because now Russia using Belarusian oil products for example, for aircrafts, because they have some problems in Russian territory. But if Ukraine probably will attack Belarusian oil plants, it will be collapse for Belarusian economy, and also it probably will problem for Russia because Belarusians not support war against Ukraine, and probably it's also will destabilize situation in Belarus if Belarusian army will attack Ukraine from Belarus. And But it's important, I believe, that Russian army and Russian soldiers now are using Belarusian territory for testing, for some other activities. That is possible, yes. And Belarusian plants also support Russian army. And Belarus is also help for Russia to export products from Europe, because contraband from Euro Union, they use in Belarus territory not only products for civil society or civil products, it's also for army.
Dual use.
Yeah, because it's also important how it's working. That is why Belarus is very important now for Russia on this war. And And it's an interesting detail. Today, Lukashenko is in shock about the situation with Iranian helicopter. What happened about sanctions? His reaction was so narrow. That is why I believe if U.S. administration, if State Department will also add 2 airplanes of Lukashenko and his 1 helicopter to the sanctions list, it will be a big challenge for him, because he is now in shock, because his friend from Iran, was died, and Lukashenko now care about his life.
All right. It's hard to comment on that. But as we're discussing the situation both in Belarus and in Ukraine, it's all connected. Adam, I'd like to ask you now about the news that emerged today that Vladimir Putin may be looking to a peace solution in Ukraine, so that Kremlin is ready to negotiate ceasefire. Now, the question is whether it's designed to thicken this fog of war, or is the Russian war machine really running out of steam?
Nothing points to them running out of steam. So this, overture, that they're trying to negotiate, obviously that's nonsense. That's not really serious. They want to freeze the front, but it's basically, three-arm and then attack again. I don't think that anyone with more than 2 proverbial brain cells can take this seriously. Ideologically, Vladimir Putin is interested in basically controlling Ukraine, if not the genocide in Ukraine. All you need to do is read his article about, the unity, so-called unity of Ukrainian and Russian people, where it's obvious. Explicitly stated. So this whole negotiation, these whole negotiations, that's nonsense, and they obviously know that. The Russians know that very well, and I think that they know that the Westerners know it very well. But they're counting on this fatigue of the West, and basically, I think that's the main point here. And they're trying to portray themselves. We're trying to show goodwill here. There is this that propaganda basically that that we tried to stop this war in March or April of 2022, but Ukraine rejected the deal. So they're always doing that. But actually, when you look at the details, when you look at their mindset, when at their ideology, there is no way that they're going to just stop and negotiate. It's not in good faith anyway. It's just not realistic.
Right. Well, there's also the deployment, of Russian tactical nuclear weapons to Belarus. We've seen here really little response on the behalf of NATO, probably in the belief that, in all accounts and likelihood, nuclear weapons won't be used, and this is just
I guess it's best not to disclose where your nuclear weapons are located exactly. So it kind of points to the fact that it's a show-off by Putin, right?
Well,
just to talk about nuclear weapons being there in Belarus and ready to be used in case of any potential conflict with NATO.
Well, yes, and I guess to pose the question to you gentlemen, Dmitry, what can we make of this situation? How is Alexander Lukashenko using the deployment of nuclear weapons to Belarusian territory, at least for his own citizens, for domestic consumption? I mean, what?
But Lukashenko cannot use these nuclear weapons because he hasn't bought them.
Right.
There's only Russians, and Russia controls these nuclear weapons, and probably together with Lukashenko, but it's Russian nuclear weapons. I believe that Putin will try now organize testing with nuclear weapons from Belarus also, and probably Putin try to demonstrate for US firstly his probably targets, and Putin wanted to destabilize situation in Euro Union, because Putin have plans to destroy Ukraine, full Ukraine, and probably next his target will be Baltic states. Today, Reuters said some information that some advisors of Putin said that Putin haven't planned to attack Baltic states and Poland. I believe haven't planned today. But in a long period, probably he have so plans, and that is why nuclear weapons is very important in our strategy for Putin to attack some countries, not using nuclear weapons, but just show his his ideas or his targets that he can use in this. But it's a big risk for Euronian that Putin now using nuclear weapons like instrument for influence situation. But Putin have also a lot of another instruments how to destabilize the situation in Europe, in the Euronian. Firstly, some cyber attacks or some attacks against politicians in the Euronian, some fires or some other instruments, how to destabilize situation in France, in Germany, in Poland, Lithuania, etc. That is why nuclear weapons no need for that, because sometimes they need another instruments. Migrants crisis also like an instrument how to destroy situation and how to create disbalance in the Euronian.
Yeah, now, Adam, you want to comment maybe on that?
Yeah, I just popped into my head that Putin apparently have appointed Sergei Karaganov as his advisor, and Sergei Karaganov is, he is the supporter of this escalation, that you escalate to de-escalate, that you basically need to strike, use nuclear strikes to deter, to stop the nuclear war, because either side, in this case the US and Western Europe, are not going to strike back. So there is this doctrine. So it's interesting that Vladimir Putin, did that. It's probably psychological warfare, but still, it's quite interesting that this move has been made by Putin, or his cronies, that Sergei Karaganov has been appointed the advisor.
Adam, could you repeat? There is a Russian nuclear doctrine that says you should strike first in order to.
You should, basically,
in order to stop the nuclear war.
Yeah, that's basically that's his understanding. Yes, that you need to strike so the West gets scared, and then the West thinks twice before using atomic weapons. Yes, that's a crazy notion, but that's how they think. That's how Sergei Karaganov thinks. Yes.
And I think in the Baltic states, I think that's a real concern.
Yeah.
He actually said that. The U.S. is not going to sacrifice hypothetical Boston for hypothetical Poznan, basically, right? That was the idea. So, that's the mindset. And it's quite interesting that, he is now apparently the official advisor to Putin, right? So.
All right, gentlemen. Well, we thank you very much for your time and sounding off on this, to Dmitry Balkunets, and as well as
Adam Borowski were our guests tonight.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.